Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'd like to call the regular meeting of Sumter County Council for Tuesday, November 12th to order. Let's please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge of allegiance.
Let us pray. Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we do thank you for allowing this council to come together again to do the business of the people. We invite your presence and ask that you dwell and abide among us as we approach our agenda that has been prepared for us. We ask your blessing upon everyone under the sound of my voice. Bless our county administrator, his staff, and all county council members. Bless all of our citizens that are here. Help us to serve in the way that will be pleasing in their sight, and help us to make decisions that are thought out very carefully and that are fair and just according to your will. We ask that you continue to bless our veterans, those that celebrated on yesterday, those that are still serving in harm's way. Let them feel your presence and know that they are not alone. These are all blessings we thank and ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no changes.
Move for approval. Second. Move the properly second that we approve our agenda discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Have a motion to approve our minutes from our
Move
meeting
for
of
approval,
October
Mr. Chairman.
22nd. Second. And moved and properly seconded that we approve our minutes from October 22nd. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Minutes are approved. Land use matters and rezoning requests, RZ 2419.
Good evening, Helen Reason for planning staff. RZ 2419 is at 2950 Ebenezer Road. The applicant is Ms. Charlotte James, the property owner. This is a request to rezone a 10-acre parcel from residential 9 to agricultural conservation. It is actually a uniquely shaped strip of land between a portion of Ginkgo Hill subdivision that was never developed and the existing residential development. This property was acquired by Ms. James and her husband because they actually own a backyard nursery, and it's an area where they're going to expand their ability for crop production. They primarily sell at farmers markets and other facilities, but at some point in the future, if this is successfully rezoned, they would like to also be able to open up their own retail sales site on that 10 acres. It is currently a wooded lot, or at least it was in the last aerial imagery, and today it's zoned R9. It's actually in the military protection planning area, as we've seen several requests in the last couple of months. The military protection planning area is actually highly supportive of rezoning from residential designations that allow dense residential development to less dense districts such as the AC zoning district. So by and large, the comprehensive plan is supportive of this request. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this request. It is in alignment with the 2040 comprehensive plan, and the AC district would significantly reduce the possible residential density on that property while permitting the applicant to pursue their intended purpose on that property. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Move approval first reading.
Second. Moved and properly seconded that we have first reading on RZ 2414. Any discussion?
I do have a question. I'm just curious as to why they are wanting to change it from R9 to agriculture.
Ms. James and her husband actually do production in their very small residential lot that actually abuts this property, and they sell plants and plant starts to farmers markets. They want to be able to use that property that they acquired, not just to plant products on, which R9 does allow, but at some point in the future, actually have a storefront location that the AC district would permit, but R9 does not. I believe Ms. James could better give you the full picture during public hearing.
That's good. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I think it's in my district. Ebenezer Road is, but then it goes a long way. But I think that part of
So
Ebenezer
this is right next to the Hill Hills subdivision.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions or discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
First reading of RZ 2419 passes. RZ 2420.
You've actually seen this property this summer, but it's coming back. It is 725 South St. Paul Church Road from St. Paul Development LLC. Tyler Dunlap and John Hilton are the applicants. Mr. Hilton is here this evening as the authorized agent. This is to actually rezone 33 acres of the property that was previously rezoned from residential 15 to R9. This is the whole parent tract. It hasn't been subdivided yet in the system, so we just grabbed it to show you, but I have a better graphic. It is currently agricultural farm fields. This doesn't represent the current zoning, but I have a better graphic for you. It is in the Poinsett Range Compatibility District, which does not regulate density or anything. It's not a military protection planning area. This is just a noise notification zone for subdivision development. If this request is successful, this is what you're going to see from the rezoning standpoint. The area in pink was actually rezoned under the previous request. That is remaining unchanged. There is a portion in the back that was rezoned to R15. They're not asking you to change that. The area that you see in the center, that central 33 acres, is what they're requesting to take to the R9 zoning district. This is coming out of the fact that between getting their third reading for R15 and when they filed this application, they actually were able to work out with the fire department, the secondary fire access that would let them reduce the lot width to 75 feet to go from 30 units to 40 units on the property. Each of these residential units are well over a half acre in size, but they're narrower at the street level and they'll have some depth to them. As we discussed previously, while it is in the residential or the suburban development planning area, it's adjacent to military protection planning area. With this proximity between the two, the plan would be more supportive of R15, but because of how this property is being developed, because there isn't the presence of public sewer, they have to use septic tanks, we're actually going to end up with R15 style densities in terms of lot size. So you won't end up with a series of R9 lots. So we do find that this request is compatible with the comprehensive plan when you weigh out all of the development limitations due to that lack of sewer service. Planning Commission does recommend approval of this request. Public sewer service isn't available, so you are going to end up with 40 lots that are at least a half acre in size or greater. The only advantage from R9 to R15 is a 75-foot lot width, which does allow them to get a couple of more, basically 10 more lots on that road frontage as opposed to having to do 100-foot lot widths. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Approve the first reading. Moved and properly seconded that we have first reading on RZ 2420. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed. First reading of RZ 2420 is approved. Ordinance amendment number 2406.
This is a request to amend our solar project standards for utility scale solar. It is being brought forward by Sumter County. It will amend the zoning and development standards ordinance, specifically Article 5, Section 5B3F, for primary photovoltaic solar energy systems to revise the setback standards and make other minor clarifications established for the special exception review. As you know, we spent extensive time, just about this time last year, getting standards adopted. It's been a year since we've looked at it, and we've had some time to mull over whether there are ways we can improve it and look at different aspects of it. And we come back to you with some changes to how we would regulate setbacks. Before, it was 300 feet everywhere, regardless of what it's adjacent to, which fundamentally took a 300-foot strip all the way around the property and made it unusable. Well, this proposal would break it up into three different kinds of setbacks. So for roadways, when we're looking at primary roadways or public roadways owned by SDU DOT that have a functional classification as a principal arterial or minor arterial, those are your numbered state routes, your Florence highways, your 378s, the roads that we consider arterial streets by DOT classifications. that 300-foot setback would remain, so that would preserve the view shed that we had such concerns with coming into the community. Other public roads, meaning any other road that is not considered an arterial, either a principal or minor arterial, as long as it's publicly owned, it would be a 200-foot setback, but there is a caveat in the regulations to look at reviewing that. And then all other private roads, you would be looking at a 50-foot setback from the platted right-of-way line. Most private roads are dirt roads, they're very low-density roads, they go through project areas. So we're looking at, for private roads with an unplatted right-of-way, the setback shall be interpreted from the, sorry, let me take my glasses off so I can read. Shall be interpreted to require a 50-foot setback on both sides of the established edge of the roadbed for development on private roads with unplatted right-of-way. Projects shall be developed to maintain private road access for all properties that are accessed by that private road. So if a solar project is going on a piece of property where there is a private road all the way through it, the solar developer would not be able to cut off access to any property that has historically used that road to access it. They have to incorporate that into their project plan. When it's abutting adjacent residential use parcels, regardless of the zoning district, would be required to have a 200-foot setback from the property line. When it abuts adjacent undeveloped parcels in a residential zoning district, so those are your R districts, they would also be required to have a 200-foot setback from the property line, whether it's developed or not. When it's abutting adjacent non-residential use parcels in agriculture, conservation, and commercial districts, as well as industrial districts, you have 100-foot setback from property lines. When a project area is comprised of multiple parcels under separate ownership, the setback shall be required on the perimeter of the project area, but not where it crosses over property, so it can better utilize that property where it's crossing over lines. The way the code is currently written, if you have 12 different tracts and they're all contiguous, you'd have to have a 300-foot boundary around every single tract, which is not practical for a large-scale development. We're also looking at reductions to project setbacks. These would be things that would be adjudicated by the Board of Zoning Appeals upon positive findings. The Board of Zoning Appeals may reduce the setback along public roads that are not classified as principal arterials or minor arterials by up to 50% when it can be demonstrated that specific project site topography and or environmental conditions on the site necessitate placement closer to the roadway to maintain appropriate separation from those environmentally sensitive features and from steep slopes. They have to orient mirrors in a certain way. They can't be on certain slopes because they don't function well. So when you're dealing with a site that has a lot of topography, sometimes it makes sense to not put it over here because it can't be. It's got to be somewhere else. And so this gives the BZA the opportunity to review those site-specific characteristics to determine whether it merits a reduction in setbacks. Additionally, individual residential property owners, where normally by code they would be required to have a 200-foot setback. A project developer or applicant can approach those property owners and seek a waiver of that 200-foot setback in favor of a 100-foot setback, but it will be on the applicant to acquire the proper legal documentation to submit with their application to show that those property owners consent to that reduction in setbacks. This in no way, shape, or form affects any of the required buffering language and landscaping that we already have in regulations. That all still complies. We did make some tweaks to this section G about the setbacks. It used to be very simple, they're 300 feet. But now the above referenced setbacks, meaning however it pans out based on site condition, shall be interpreted to apply to all improved areas associated with the project. This provision excludes any security fencing and permanent stormwater management facilities. However, those fences and management facilities have to be placed behind the landscape buffers that are required later in the regulations. We have not made any other changes to the language. Everything else that we have established, the landscaping standards, the requirement for the removal bonding, and all of those things remains untouched. Literally just the sections you saw on the screen will be modified by this. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Move approval.
Ask a question, Mr. Chairman. Can we go back 2 slides?
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, why would an individual residential property owner agree to waive the 200-foot setback requirement?
In favor of 100?
What would make them want to do that?
That would be between them and the developer that is approaching them.
Right, I get that, but
Uh,
it's just pretty nebulous. Why was that?
There are actually other counties in the state that actually have this in their own language. I actually am friends with the administrator in Calhoun County, or the assistant county administrator in Calhoun County, and he actually put this into his code. It was something that actually came up when I was doing my research last year, but based on the conversations that we were having, it just didn't get put in or brought up. If you guys have an issue with that, it doesn't need to stay in. This is just a proposal that we wrote based on all of the competing factors that we had in front of us as we were researching. As far as what the agreement is or why they would agree to it, that would really be a private agreement between the developer and the property owner that from a staff level we would not get involved in. We would not be part of any negotiating process. It would not be our role to deal with it at all, other than they would have to provide us legally binding documentation that that property owner has agreed to it.
I guess my concern is the property owner may not understand the dynamics of the conversation and they agree to something that later they're sorry that they did. Because they're not skilled in this area, most property owners. So I was just curious as to why that was stuck here.
Motion to approve first reading.
Well, I have a question concerning that too, because I'm reading it and it says that even though an owner may want to reduce the setback to 100 feet, that other property owners adjacent to that can deny. And so that means that the whole thing is dead if someone come up and say, well, I don't want a setback.
It would mean that 100-foot setback would only apply to the section of the property that abuts their property. Everywhere else, it would be a 200-foot setback where they weren't able to secure agreements from other owners. So this project area will have multiple setbacks along various sections of the property line.
So it only applies to that person's property.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
That would make it not uniform.
No, but the buffering along all of those property lines would remain the same requirement. So they would have that same 50-foot vegetated buffer requirement between residential. So regardless, there's no reduction in the buffering standards. That will remain unchanged.
Will the residents be able to benefit from any of the solar power?
It depends on the project and what it's for. These regulations apply to any solar project that qualifies for a special exception review. So that if it's a utility scale solar project and it's being fed into the power grid, ultimately it helps feed our power grid. As far as personal direct benefit, I don't know how to quantify that.
Right. And just thinking that, and when I saw that, I thought that maybe that would be the reason for narrowing the access to it, the proximity to it. But, nobody's going to wring their arms, I hope that they will understand if they're asked to, to reduce their setback to 100, that they will understand what is being asked of them and not feel like they have to do it.
So also the regulations are being written as part of the special exception review process. So this is not a staff level review. It is not a staff level seal of approval. This is simply language that allows a developer to put a project together and it goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals for public hearing approval, just as the last two solar projects that came before the county that were large scale. So it still has to go through a public hearing process to get special exception approval through the PCA.
So, Mr. Chairman, I know that this body is going to pass it on first reading as it does some projects. But I would encourage members to look at this very closely before we have second reading to make sure that we're all comfortable with this.
And maybe, Ms. Ruman, could get to the root of why it's there, what, you know, because it really stands out.
It's there because we wrote it in there after looking at the regulations. Like I said, it can be pulled out. It's a flexible thing.
So you had another
Calhoun County has this in their code.
that you could replicate.
But in Calhoun County, their solar projects are actually a by right use, where all of the reviews done at the staff level, but the language to allow reduction in setback came from them.
All right, thank you. You have a motion and a second.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance amendment 2406. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ordinance amendment 2406 passes. RZ 2418.
Mr. Chairman, before we go forward, will the public hearing be at the next council meeting on this?
Second reading, yeah.
Yes?
RZ 2418 for 4520 Pinewood Road and 4035 Golden Bay Drive. As you'll recall, this is a request for two properties that in total equal 9.11 acres from conservation, preservation, agricultural conservation. This is the property in question, and it's actually two separate parcels. One piece is 5.3 acres, the other piece is 4 acres. These are two independently owned properties that belong to two family members. The question came up at the public hearing from one of the council members about whether or not just 2 acres could be rezoned to AC. I took a look at the zoning ordinance just to see what the ramifications of that would be. Because one property is 5.3 acres and the other property is 4 acres, in order to rezone a 2-acre portion of any of those properties, it would still require to get variances from the Board of Zoning Appeals in order to subdivide it, because our regulations require, even under a lifetime conveyance situation, or really under any situation, the parent parcel still has to comply with the zoning district minimum standards. So as a 5.3 acre parcel and a 4 acre parcel, the minimum lot size in the CP district is actually 5 acres. So in order to subdivide either of them, you would make either one of them even more non-conforming, or you would make one that isn't currently non-conforming, which would require an action through the Board of Zoning Appeals. That's really the one thing that I heard that came out from the last meeting. I have not had any changes to the request. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Chairman, I would propose that we rezone the 5.3 acre tract. That would be, you're looking at on the screen, with red, and rezone it to AC, leave the other one as it is. I think that would accomplish what the applicant wanted to do.
How many trailers can they put on there once we rezone it, they said?
The minimum lot size for the AC district is 1 acre. All newly created lots, unless it is part of a lifetime family conveyance, must have a minimum of 60 feet of road frontage, and that property does not have enough road frontage configuration that's not taken up by an existing dwelling, blocking it in order to divide anything that needs by a market rate subdivision. So any division of this property would have to be a lifetime family conveyance.
So that frontage on Pinewood Road, they would have to have their own driveway going.
They'd have to have a 60-foot wide swath all the way back to any.
And how wide is that, 126?
I think it's about 126 feet.
So
But
that would
also,
only give them two homes.
but there is also a house sitting in the way that's preventing them from getting to that acreage threshold because the property line cannot go through the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that a motion? Is that a motion?
Yeah.
I'll second.
So
The motion is to rezone to 5 acres.
5.9
Not all of it.
Just the area that you see highlighted in red is the 5.3 acre tract.
I'm confused there because if we rezone it to 5 acres, do they have to have, how would, so one driveway could connect to another trailer in that 5 acres?
They would have to do it as a lifetime family conveyance. Lifetime family conveyance lots are not required to have frontage on a public road, but they must be accessed by a 15-foot wide easement.
So at that point, they could put three trailers, as long as they're family members.
If they would have to go through the lifetime family conveyance process, the property would have to perk. I don't believe there's public water out there. It's theoretically you could do more, but you'd actually have to convey the land to individual property owners. It's not just holding it and keeping it in your name.
So what, I'm just asking, because you can't blow this up for us, but I'm on Pinewood Road facing this 5.3 acre tract. There's a home, and this is not the existing home, I think this is an old aerial before, they must have replaced it, because that's a single wide, this is a double wide there now.
There's homes in
So
there.
there is not 60 feet between that home and the red line?
I do not have a survey to answer that question.
I would think it would be myself. But if there's 60 feet, then they can run on back to that.
Well, even if they're 60 feet, they still have to meet the setbacks for the existing structure, which is an additional 12 feet if the AC district is the side setback. So absent a survey, which I do not have for this property, I could not lay out for you the possibilities of what could be divided.
Mr. Chairman, just to make sure I'm correct, this is the issue where the homeowners had some concern about the applicant building on the property, and they had some issues with the dog and so forth. Like, this is the same issue, correct? I'm not sure we're ready to make a decision on this based on what Ms. Rubin said about the 60-foot question the councilman asked. Might be premature. We need accurate information. There are a lot of folks depending on council to make the right decision.
What information do we need?
I would like to know if there is 60 feet, but you're gonna need 72, you think, then?
I would need a survey of that property to actually tell you how it could be divided in compliance with regulations. I do not know if such a thing exists.
Mr. Chairman, if I recall, that meeting when public hearing was very feisty. People were really, really upset with what the applicant wanted to do. And I think we asked that we be given additional information. We referred that so we could get the information that we needed to make a good decision. So I don't know if the people who are here tonight, oh yeah, I see them, okay, who was opposed to it. And so I'm kind of skeptical about approving something that's going to degrade the standard of living of people around it, you know. So that's what I think.
I agree with the councilman from Myrtle Beach Highway.
So what information are you looking to get? My question.
The question that the councilman from Wilson Hall asked, the survey that Ms. Rubin talked about, we need all of that information to make an accurate decision, and also the weighted counsel that we got from residents who have spent a lot of money improving the land and have been there for years as tax-paying citizens. And they made their expressions very clear. They also talked about a dog issue that, you know, while that may not be a part of this process, it's certainly important to me as a councilman if there's an issue.
If I recall correctly, I think there was a problems with the four-wheelers too.
Yeah, this is not ready to go.
What do you wanna do?
Well, like, Councilman Edens, suggested that we, approved the one in red, but not the other one. It appears that the request is for, both of them. But, but from, if I can recall correctly, the neighbors do not want us to do either.
That's correct.
I was under the assumption that their biggest opposition was with the 4-acre tract. Yeah, I'm wrong.
They can't put trailers along that, that's a private road there. I mean, the Golden Bay Road, they would have no access to put any other buildings on that 4 acres there. My only concern was if we could fit one trailer back there for the daughter, I could understand that. But I don't know how you're gonna be able to do it, first of all. And if we can't do that, then I'm against it.
I wouldn't wanna rezone that tonight without knowing how it would be done.
Yeah, I would need to know that if it can be done.
Yeah.
Mr.
Before I'm
Chairman,
ready to vote.
I will withdraw my motion.
just to answer the question that was answered, the residents are opposed to both.
You know, and I hear that, but in all fairness, you know, everybody needs to be able to use their property in some degree. And, you know, I can recall years back when we've had these types of issues to come up, and we would actually schedule a meeting with both parties so that they could come together and see if they can find some common ground, and then let us know what they determined. That would help us a lot, because I don't want to approve something that is going to be extremely offensive to an established community, but yet by the same token, I would like for landowners to be able to use their property. And so that puts us in a very sticky situation. But I don't think that all is lost. That with everybody being upstanding citizens, I feel like some common ground can be found and a report can be given to us so that we can make the right decision.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I think ultimately and primarily, if those homeowners were there for a period of time and made an investment in their property, we cannot then allow someone else to come along and depreciate the investment that they have made. That is just not right.
How putting another trailer here would depreciate the other value?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I might disagree with you on that one. But I still have this question, agreeing with you on one trailer, and I can live with that. We can figure that out, like Mr. Eden said, but if you can't figure that one out, I'm a no vote.
But I will, and I guess I will withdraw my motion, but I would like to see the applicant come back and take something to planning, a survey or whatever, to show how it can be done.
And just to add to it, I did ride out there, and we looked at it, and I can tell you, I spoke to people along the Golden Bay Road. Their concern is the 4 acres. They definitely do not want anything on that 4 acres there. They didn't seem to be that concerned about putting the trailer back on the other side.
I will tell you that from a zoning regulations standpoint, because it's the conservation district, which this council doesn't deal with much because it's not a very densely populated area. The minimum lot size in that district is 5 acres. So in order to rezone anything to AC in this area, you would have to rezone at least 5 acres in order to even subdivide the property, because the parent parcel must comply with the minimum requirements of its current zoning district in order to be subdivided. So if you're going to divide the property in the CP district, even with a lifetime family conveyance, you actually have to have a minimum of 7 acres because you can convey 2 acres in a lifetime conveyance in the CP district, but the parent parcel still has to have 5 acres left. So if you rezone the property to AC, just a 2-acre portion of it, we still can't subdivide the property because the property itself will not be large enough to have a remainder that complies with the CP minimum standards. So that's what I was trying to explain at the front. I don't know if what I told you was clear, and I apologize if it was not.
And I'm good with that, but my question was, I asked you, I said, can they put more than one if we rezone that all 5 acres? And your answer to me was,
It could be.
theoretically, they could.
Yeah.
Well, that's a problem for me right there.
And so, if that's true anywhere with this scenario in the CP district. If you were going to rezone the 5 acres to any other district that has higher density, then you could certainly, if you can meet the standards, divide it to meet the requirements of that district.
Well, I'd like to see what Mr. Eads was saying. Do they have enough to do the drive? I guess that's what
But if they do, then they could subdivide it in more than 2 parcels.
They would have to do it as a lifetime family conveyance, and they would be limited by what our current regulations require in the AC district. So yes, it could potentially be more than 2 lots.
So that's my issue.
Yeah, mine too.
Could we adjust the CP?
You could look at amending the language in the CP
How
district.
many don't, how many lots don't want to count? It can't be many. This thing hardly ever comes to us. There's a lot.
Yeah, it's a huge area.
I mean, how many really touch?
Most of the eastern part of the county, especially around Pinewood, Poinsett, Manchester State Forest, all of that is CP zoning.
How much is owned by like government agencies, like forestry or whatever? How much is privately owned? You know, maybe talking about-
I would say at least a third of it's privately held, if not more.
And let me ask you this, going, I guess, up north on this picture, that's the bombing range right there.
It is, yes.
Right there.
Yeah.
All that's the bombing range.
Yes.
Oh.
Mr. Edens has withdrawn his motion, so what is the pleasure of council?
Send it back to staff and let, I wanna know if that's 72. But I still say that's not gonna solve the problem.
Surveys, well, we need a survey.
The main question then at this point is, how many lots could be cut out of that 5.3?
I'll have to look at it.
4?
If it were 2, then that's what their request really is. And,
It could be
Live with that.
it could be anywhere from 3 to 4 lots out of that.
then I would
I
have
doubt that it would make it
vote
to
deny.
5.
That's the question I'm like that.
Second.
No, I didn't make a motion. Like I said, I would have to if that was the case.
Just by looking at it, it could be anywhere from 3 to 5 lots could be created out of it using a lifetime family conveyance mechanism. And one of those lots would likely comply with the minimum development standards of the AC district with all of that road frontage. The rest would have to be conveyed by a lifetime conveyance.
I mean, to do that would just be slapping these folks in the face who've been there for a period of time and made their investment.
So, Ms. Rudman, what do they desire to be done with these, how many acres? 9?
My understanding, and I can defer to both applicants since they are both here today, is that at minimum, they would like to put one other family member on the property. And I do believe that they have a home occupation that at some point they would actually like to have as more than just a home occupation, which is not allowed in the AC district, or in the CP district, but is a possibility in the AC district. So you're looking at minimum another family member, at maximum another family member, and new business location.
And I know you're saying it very nicely. But what is their home occupation, please?
They are a debris removal business. So they go in, my understanding is correct, and I would defer to the applicant. They go into disaster zones and clean up. They also will go do cleanups other places to take debris off of properties. And so there is generally heavy equipment involved with that. I don't know if any is on the property currently, but if they were to successfully rezone the property and move the business there to more than a home occupation, they would ultimately be potentially allowed to have those things on their property. But I do defer to the applicant on the finer details of that. That is my understanding. I may be incorrect.
Yeah, so that's not hard, we just depreciate.
Thank you. Well, and I can hear the conversation. Someone said it's happening now, and that's why.
We're researching and investigating what's going on the property right now from a zoning enforcement perspective to see if there are in fact any violations that we can substantiate.
Yeah, what's the pleasure of the council?
I'd like to defer it. If we're investigating, I'd like to see what is going on. I rode back there. I did see a lot of, on the upper top red section, I did see a lot of tree timber stuff laying on the ground back in there. I don't know what that was, but I'll look at defer it, but I'm not comfortable when you say there could be more than one trailer put in there. So I'm going to tell you right now, until you can figure a way to show me that it's just one trailer and that's it, I'm not ready. My vote will be no.
I can answer that question right now. In the AC zoning district, I have no ability to limit how many can go on there as long as it complies with the ordinance standards. And the minimum lot size in the AC district is 1 acre. And if it is done using the lifetime conveyance tool, which conveys it to an immediate family member, as long as it meets the minimum requirements of the district in terms of shape and dimension, and it can perk and have water to it, the plat can be approved.
You answer my question.
Mr. Chairman, this project is in my district, and these good folks have raised sufficient issues for denial, so I move to deny.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we deny RZ 2418. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor of denying, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay. RZ 2418 is denied. MA 2402.
MA 2402 is our comprehensive plan 5-year update. This is a request we brought forward to amend the text, pictures, tables, figures, and maps of the comprehensive plan in accordance with the required 5-year evaluation of the document. For those of you that were on council when we adopted the 2040 plan in 2019, you will remember that we were waiting with bated breath for the 2020 census data. We just didn't know it will take an entire global pandemic for it to be released, which is why we're updating this information now instead of 3 years ago. So here's our update. There are no proposed changes to our existing policies. We will be updating the demographic information related to population, housing, and economic data related to income and employment. This will include our tables, graphs, maps, and to capture our latest census data. There will be some minor revisions to the conservation planning area. This is based on our newly adopted floodplain boundaries from October of 2022. And then some other minor changes and updates to descriptions, text references, and pictures that come along with making changes to this many graphics. So in the population element, you will see that Sumter County has had a relatively stable population since the 1990s. We have hovered around 40,000 in the city and around 100,000 in the county for the last 30 years. When we look at the changes in population, as you'll notice, we've been pretty level in our population, but we have been seeing population shifts around the community. Some of that can be attributed to people changing their preferences for where they live in the community. It could be to aging out, and it could be to people just moving into the community. The areas that you see in blue have the most population changes. The areas that you see in the shades of red have lost populations. As you'll note, for the last 30 years, we've had a pretty stable population, so this is really representing how our population in the county has moved around in that 30 years. Our median age over time in both the city and county, we're getting older. In 1990, we're in our 30s, and now in the 2020s, we're in our 40s. So our population is aging. With our housing element, you've seen housing growth since 2000s, and it is actually larger than the population growth. This is the fact that households are actually getting smaller. The average number of people in a household has gone down, but the number of housing units is going up, either as replacement of things that we have demolished, so new construction, or it's just new construction in general. Then we look at owner occupancy versus renter occupied. Sumter County actually has a pretty high owner occupancy rate compared to renter occupied. It's actually closer to how the state is reflected as opposed to the city, where the city has kind of a balance of owner and renter. And then we look at median home values. The darker green colors are the higher valued homes throughout the community based on median price. You'll see that some of that kind of corresponds to how we've seen growth and development happening over the last 20 years intuitively as community members. See a lot of stuff happening in and around Shaw Air Force Base and to the west of the city. Most of the cities or county's housing stock was built in the 1980s. Otherwise, it's pretty evenly distributed across the other decades. So we had a big housing shift in the 80s, and we've been slowly building new stuff since then. In terms of economic development, you'll notice that our median household incomes are kind of on par when you look at the mapping with what our median home prices are in terms of where people are choosing to live throughout the community. Our labor force, as you'll see, our labor force numbers have gone down over the last few years, so we're getting a smaller amount of labor force in the community. This isn't really all that shocking. A lot of the boomer generation has started to retire, and they're much older, so they're coming out of the labor force. My generation, Generation X, and our kids, there aren't as many of us, so there's just less people working. But be that as it may, just because there's less people working doesn't mean we have a high rate of unemployment. We're actually hovering at around 3.8, 3.6%. So it's actually pretty good. That big spike that you see was when the governor shut everything down during the global pandemic and everybody wasn't working. So we have actually recovered pretty nicely from that. And hand in hand with that, we're actually seeing an increase in the percentage of population that is getting a high school diploma. So we're in a much better place than we were in the 90s.
You did say an increase?
Yeah. With at least a high school diploma. Also an increase with bachelor's degrees.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about the workforce? You were saying we were declining in the workforce. Could that not also have to do with we filled a lot of positions that are no longer there, like through Continental or through?
No, the workforce numbers are actually based on the number of people who are working age in the community. So it's the workforce is considered people that are eligible and capable of working who are not fully retired.
In the county.
In the county, yeah. Yeah. From the land use element, from a high level, it looks pretty much the same as it always has. In the county, the areas that you see in the dark green are the conservation planning area. Bulk of these properties in the community are actually influenced by special flood hazard area, which is why they look like rivers, because we do have a lot of rivers and swamps here in the community. And then this is just kind of what it looks like in Museum Mountain City. That big blue area that you see up in the north is the Air Force Base. These are the ways that the conservation planning areas have changed based on the maps inside the city limits. The areas that you see in the light green are new areas going into the conservation planning area, and the areas that you see in blue are coming out of the conservation planning area. They are only being redesignated to whatever they were already touching. So if they were in the suburban development planning area, that's what they're going to. If they were in the agricultural planning area, that's what they're going to. We're not adding any new designations. And then this is what it looks like from a county perspective. You actually have several areas of contraction. The areas that you see in light green, kind of the north side of the county, that's where when they did the new flood studies, they actually expanded on the existing studies and they went further north than anywhere that they've mapped before. I suspect that those areas were always wet and just didn't have maps to prove it. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this request, and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Move for approval.
Yeah. Prior to council making the motion, taking motion, we're gonna have a public hearing. I now declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the comprehensive plan, please proceed to the microphone and state your name for the record. Seeing none, public comment is closed.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
Second. It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the 2040 comprehensive plan 5-year update. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just moving forward in the future, it would be a good idea if we could release this document in advance so that people would have the opportunity to review it, ask any questions they may have, and that it also be sent to council members in advance as well, because it's important for us to be able to make the appropriate decisions. And Drew did an excellent presentation. Good information. But we need to be able to advance look at these kinds of things because they're important. That's my only comment.
A motion and a second to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? RZ 2415, third reading.
There have been no changes to this request in second reading. We continue to recommend approval of rezoning from R9 and GC days.
Third reading.
Second.
So moved and properly seconded that we have third reading on RZ 2415. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. RZ 2416.
There have been no changes to this request in second reading. We continue to recommend approving rezoning those 3 parcels from AC to heavy industrial for a total of 41.7 acres.
Move for approval. Second.
Third reading.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we have third reading on RZ 2416. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Third reading is passed. Mr. Bryan, ordinance number 241011.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, ordinance 241011 is the ordinance to approve sale of a little less than a quarter of an acre of fronts on Broad Street, and this is part of the project that the SCDOT is doing to improve the intersection of Broad Street and St. Paul's Church Road. We're going to have a public hearing on this for second reading. So the offer made by SCDOT for this property, which is owned by the city and the county, is $17,739. which equates to $1.50 per square foot or $78,491 per acre. So that's the value of the property. It's less than a quarter of an acre in square footage and acre size. Does that take any questions before public hearing?
Any questions? Anyone wishing to, we're gonna have a public hearing on this. Anyone wishing to speak for or against ordinance 24-1011, please proceed to the podium. State your name for the record. Hearing none, public comment closed.
Approve second reading. Second.
We'll move to properly seconded that we have second reading on ordinance 24-1011. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 2405.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, the enabling legislation that allows Sumter County to impose the county price sales tax requires that you pass a resolution acknowledging the results. So we have before you a resolution declaring the results of the referendum. Attached to the resolution is a copy of the official results and compliance with the price sales tax passed by a vote of 25,074 in favor and 15,954 opposed. That's the gist of the resolution.
Approve second.
We're moving to properly seconded that we adopt resolution 2405. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed. Resolution passes. Ordinance number 241010, third reading.
Mr. Chairman, no changes in second reading.
Move for approval. Second.
Properly seconded that we have third reading on ordinance number 241010. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Committee reports. The Fiscal Tax and Property Committee did meet. We went into executive session to discuss a contract. We came out with a motion and a second to extend the contract for CNC Property Holdings LLC to 8/31/2025. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Monthly reports, Mr. Glenn. I'm sorry. Reports from council members on the administrator.
Real quick, Ms. Bingham, you got the video?
I did.
Okay.
Yes, I
Make
received.
sure. Okay.
Yes. Well, what he's talking about,
I'm sorry.
you can go ahead because you're on the committee, but I was privileged to be able to watch the proposed project coming from Suez. That's from Suez, right? Sumter.
It's also a penny project as well.
It is a penny project. And because the penny project has passed, then we would have the matching funds that would be needed to draw down those federal funds. But it is a very interesting project. It will alleviate the problems that we see presently with our residents that live in the Walnut Hill community trying to cross over to the other side to get to the stores and to food. They call it a food desert. And so whenever this project comes to fruition, that will be a thing of the past. What I've seen is there will be like several intersections along the way. And it's really going to eliminate the pike roads, and there will be pedestrian pathways or sidewalks. I would call them sidewalks because that's what they look like. And when you look at the video, you can see the people moving, and you can see the trucks, those big 18-wheelers making their way, and there's a very unique turnaround for the 18-wheelers. And in my opinion, it's a work of genius, the way that project has been crafted. And once it comes to fruition, the problems that we know of so much about the loss of lives and accessibility to resources. Those days will be over once this project comes to fruition.
Okay, didn't they also have Miller Road going across with a stop like that?
Yes, it's all, yeah, I know I missed a lot of things, but it's just amazing, the ingenuity that went into, that design. And I hope that, you know, it will be, the federal funds will come down to fund it and that it will be prioritized when that time comes. I see the county administrator is nodding his head. So that's a request to prioritize. It'll be something that's long awaited. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You probably could do it better, Jimmy, but.
No, you did. Good job.
Thank you.
Monthly reports, Mr. Brand.
In council's packets, there's information about a telehealth kickoff community event on November the 14th at the Shiloh Community Center. And I know Mrs. McGaney has said she'll be there. And if any other council members would like to go, please do so. Shiloh Community Center on Puddin Swamp Road. Additionally, the Sumter State of Education will be presented by Duke Energy, but it is on November the 13th on Lauren Mill Road, and that is from 7:30 a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m. And then there's an oyster roast that is going to be held on the 21st of November from 6 to 9. And if anyone's interested, let me know. There's also an event in Renford that's on the same date as the, let me get back up here, the 13th. But it's from 6 to 8, okay? If anyone's interested in attending, please do so. All right, Mr. Washington.
Correct.
One last thing, on behalf of Ms. Rodman, she did give me that information to send to you all, so you may, that Mr. Washington referenced earlier, and if you all did not get it, I'll send it out again, okay?
Mr. Chair, council members, good evening. Mr. Chair, if I could be given the liberty, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Councilman Byrd, Councilman Gainey, Councilman Washington for their election, and remaining council members of Suffolk County. We're extremely proud and happy for all of you. And if it's okay, I would like to recognize Ms. Tasha Gardner, which was newly elected as well to join council in January, I believe. Councilman Baker had elected not to run again, so we'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate everyone. Looking forward to working with everybody. We've got a great council, and we'll do wonderful things together. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, did we overlook item 2 on the committee report?
I call for it. I call for it.
No, I'm
Jimmy
sorry, I
spoke,
didn't.
and then Ms. McGaney spoke.
Okay. Well, I would like to speak at the time. Okay. Mr. Chairman, and I'm speaking because we had a very good discussion with the Sumter branch of the NAACP at one of our regular meetings, and we talked about the education of low-income children in Sumter County. And we looked at the fact that it seems like the standard of education for our students in public education has degraded significantly. Out of 75 individual school districts in South Carolina, Sumter County ranks number 69. 69. They rank under Clarendon, under Kershaw County, under Florence. And the only saving grace is we rank above Lee County, which ranks number 72. If that's a blessing. But I was sold, and we talked about the penny tax, and I was sold that education was the backbone of economic development, and that we needed to have a workforce that was here. So when we do bring in business and industry, that we have the workforce to fill those positions that are needed. And we mentioned Ms. Gardner, and I commend her for winning the election. And I remember at a forum that we had at the Eastern Center, where Ms. Gardner made a statement that Continental Tires cannot get employees in the county. They have to go outside of Sumter County to get employees because the citizens or children in Sumter County are not qualified. Our public schools, 3 high schools, 2 of them are rated below average. Sumter High, Crestwood, and 1 is rated unsatisfactory. That's the last cradle of education that our kids are going to receive before they go out into the world, before they go out for jobs, before they go for further their education, before they go in the military. But our test scores rank 15 and 20% lower than the state average. Actually, Mr. Chairman, our kids can hardly read, write, and do math. And that's sad. That's sad because when Continental Tires came here, I was the chairman, and they interviewed me. The Continental Tires team came and they interviewed me. And they asked me about our workforce. And because at that time, I was a substitute teacher, and I was the primary sub for the Career Center, and I knew about the Career Center. Also, I was served on the advisory board, and I could tell Continental Tires evaluation team that we had, and it's in the records, we have a dedicated, loyal, technically skilled workforce. And in that statement, I guarantee them that they will be successful in Sumter County. And they have been successful because of that workforce. I can't say that now. We don't have that workforce. And I guess Ms. Tasha Gardner-Gleason made a true statement. We have to go outside of Sumter County to hire people. But yet, we passed the penny tax, and we're going to ask the parents of low-income children to put an 8-year tax on yourself, but yet we can't improve their children's standard of education. And that's a shame. That is a shame. As I leave this body, that will be one of the things that I will always carry with me that's heavy on my heart. The fact, and I'm going to make a statement, the fact that this body, Sumter County Council, degraded public education in this county by defunding public education. And let's be real. There's a relationship between the millage that we have been denied, and as a result of that, I saw Sumter County School District go down, down, down. And now there's 69 out of 75 school districts. That's a shame when we are the 14th largest county in the state. But yet we have one of the worst school systems in the state. So I'm going to be fighting for our kids. Because I know one thing. I've been a licensed master social worker for over 35 years. And I know that there's a relationship between education and student or violence in our community. And we're going to see more violence because these kids out here are not going to sit around and do nothing. They're going to get involved in gangs. they're gonna get involved in drugs, they're gonna be selling drugs, and we're gonna see more violence. And as we sit around and say, how can we deal with the violence in Sumter County? Because if we are not dealing with poverty, which we have the highest poverty rate in the state average, poverty is hunger. If we're not dealing with the poverty, and poverty is caused by inequality, and the only way we can help to deal with quality is through a quality education so that our kids can have the opportunity to get jobs, to get employed, to go in the military and do things and improve their standard of living. Right now, I feel sorry for what's going to happen in this county because the crime rate is definitely going to go up. It's definitely going to go up because we have kids out here who have no job, have no training, and you think they're going to sit back and not do anything? We're mistaken. My heart's heavy, and I just needed to put that statement in there, Madam Clerk. I want that to be a part of the record. I want what I said to be a part of the record because I want it to be known that we have defunded, this body defunded public education, and that's why they're ranked number 69 out of 75 school districts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, this is just a point of privilege, but, and I love my colleague, I really do, but as a person of faith, I just can't allow it to go in the air that we're going to have more violence. I just can't allow that. We're not going to have more violence. We are going to make it. Our children will succeed. We will do well. I just want to say that. We have to. We have to speak it. We have to rebuke those things that are going to cause our children to not make it. Now, yes, I agree with education. I'm a retired educator, but I work with the little ones now. I'm preparing them, and they're all different facets. And y'all know that I support education every time. But I have to, and just as a person of faith, I've got to say that they will succeed. Those things, the violence will not increase.
Madam Chair, I hear what you're saying, and you are speaking heavenly words, but unfortunately, we are living here on earth. Let's be real.
Anyone else? Come now to the public comment portion of our agenda. Citizens desiring to speak during public comment are limited to up to 3 minutes. Comments are to be made through the chair. If there are any questions, they will be answered after the meeting. Public comment is open. If you want to speak to council, please proceed to the podium and state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Robert Barker. I'm the owner of 4525 Wood. I just want to come up and say I'm disappointed in the decision we come to. However, I couldn't make the last meeting. I was in Florida doing storm work. That being said, if y'all had any questions, I'd love to answer it for you tonight. I understand it wasn't a public hearing. I understand it's not normal procedure. I understand all that. I also understand I can't do anything now until a year, correct? Okay. So you look for me again. I'll see y'all again next November. I'm gonna try again. Yes, I do own my own business. It's called Mongo's Local Enterprises. I do land clearing, debris removal, tree removal. You know, just 40-year-old man trying to work, make a living, try to provide. The 4 acres on Golden Bay, that was from my father. He does have my sister, and whatever that situation is at the moment, he's just trying to help her by putting her on 2 acres beside him. I don't know if there's a process where he could be at least granted a variance or, a process for that, so she could at least move forward on that aspect. If not, we're just going to, I guess, try to find a piece of property in another county, on that end or something, just try to figure it out. Sorry about my neighbors coming up with comments. I know there was a comment made about multiple trailers and trying to make a trailer park. I have aspirations to own mobile homes in the future, but I do not want to be in the middle of a trailer park myself. That's the goal in life, you know, get where you have residual income, be able to retire, you know, and just try to improve. I come from a hardworking family, and I'm the first one actually trying to create my own business, create my own path, and do the things that I feel necessary for me and my family to do. That being said, I know one neighbor has brought up that comment, selling mobile homes. The code is not going to allow it. For one, if they read the AC code, it's not going to happen, just the way it's written. However, that being said, 95% of the properties around me don't meet code currently for that conservative preservation. If you look around my 5 acres, on the left I have a 2-acre tract. To the back of me I have a 3-acre tract. So on and so forth, down Pinewood Road. They're all under this conservation preservation, but nobody, if they want to do anything, can do anything at all because of the way it's currently zoned. So when I went to the planning commission or the planning board of the office and I brought it up, they said, okay, well, we're glad you're doing it because we figured this would be coming up in the future. Being because everything on that end of the county and the way if people decide to put a garage or anything, whatever they decide to do, it'd be hard for them to do it. Thank you for your time. Hope you have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Council. I'm Dr. Alexandra Baker. I am here again, and if I don't, my law enforcement friends would not be happy with me if I don't try again. As you guys know, Captain Hawkins and myself, we've been trying for many months to address the increase of gun violence in our community. And one thing that we came up with was potentially having you guys explore, pass an ordinance to address firearm use in residential areas of the county. Now, not where an individual has a large plot of land and whatnot, but we're talking about neighborhoods where you have minimal distance between homes. And it's just not safe anymore. We are having increased gun violence, and anything to try to help is good. So I would like to request that you guys could possibly just draft up something, because the sheriff is amenable to looking at a draft. So if you guys can make a draft, then he can see it, and maybe you guys can get together, and hopefully we can get something done about it. And additionally, I would like to recognize 2 council members. The NAACP, they had their Freedom Fund banquet a few weeks ago. Councilman Washington won the James T. McCain Civil Rights Award, and is named after our chairman's father. And my father, Eugene Baton, won the James T. McCain Civil Rights Award some years ago, but at this year's Freedom Fund banquet, he won the prestigious President's Award. So I would just like to recognize those 2 for the hard work they do, and keep it up, guys. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Public comment is closed.
Mr. Chairman, as I have mentioned to you before, I am a fan of your father's work in Sumter County when he was here. I told you that privately. I may have said it publicly. So it was a great honor to get the award under his name. And I just wanted to say that to you.
Congratulations to the both of us. To adjourn.
Second.
Moving to properly seconded that we adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Adjourn.